If you are experiencing foundation issues, get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
It is a minute before the hour, and April is Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Awareness Month. And a big program coming up over at the flagpole at City Hall on Thursday morning. And joining us today is Ollie Cates, the Outreach Case Manager for Safe's Fatherhood Program. He's been doing that since 2001. Ollie, good morning to you.
Good morning.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
Yeah. Hey, you put your jacket on this morning getting out?
I just pulled it off.
Ollie, let's talk about Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Awareness Month. First of all, you've been doing this a long time. Do you see us making inroads in preventing child abuse?
Well, not really. I mean, we are giving out information. We're doing advertisements. We're talking with people in programs and stuff, but the number is still up. I mean, we want zero in child abuse, but the numbers are still there. They're still high.
Yeah. Let's talk about it this morning. Define child abuse, if you can.
Oh, well, you can. I mean, one way you look at child abuse is harm or threatening harm to a child's health and their well-being, whether it be physical or mental. That's where you would look at child abuse in short.
And how do we make more people aware? You mentioned a couple of things we're doing, but what is child abuse awareness?
It's having the knowledge that with all this media, all the information being given out, talking about it, word of mouth, talking about it, it still exists. That's what a child abuse awareness is, having that knowledge, and we're still doing it. People are still doing it, and it still exists in this country.
You kind of shake your head at it. It is something so unnecessary, and there are different types of child abuse as well. Talk about that today.
Yes, child abuse. I can think of 4 child abuse situations. Well, one is physical. That's punching a child, kicking a child, burning a child, putting them in closets. Just physical damage to this child's physical being. That's the physical part. That's physical abuse. It's all in my head, all these things that's happening to a child physically that's causing them to not develop physically in their bodies. And then there's the emotional abuse that's getting into their mindset, calling them out of their names, telling them they're not going to amount to anything, putting it there for them to grow up in their mindset that they're not going to amount to anything. That's that emotional abuse that they're carrying from birth all the way up to adulthood, maybe. Then there's the sexual abuse. That's a big one. That's adult having sex with a child. Information being shared with children, pornographic pictures, and exposing an adult exposing themselves to children. That's the physical abuse. Then there's the neglect. They're simply not giving the kids what they need, basically. Food, clothing, shelter, even the medical treatment that they need, not giving them that. Those are the 4 I can really think of about child abuse.
Is of those 4, which would be the more common type of abuse in our county?
I would think, and I'm just thinking, well, it's 2, the physical and the sexual part, those 2. The physical part, individuals can sort of tell if a child is being abused physically because they can see the bruises, the burning, something physical on them that they can really look at and see. The sexual part is hard to tell only because you're sort of getting it from the individuals themselves, that little child that veers away from not being around, wanting to be around anybody. They're being very secretive. They don't want to be touched. That's hard to tell because they're very secretive. They feel embarrassed. They don't want anybody to know it. They feel guilty. And so that's a hard one to sort of detect.
And I guess it goes back to in the sexual abuse, especially to the emotional abuse. You're telling a child, and I've read stories about this, telling a child, be sure you don't tell anybody because it'll get so-and-so in trouble.
Or get me into trouble and get yourself into trouble. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's what they're telling the child. There's nothing wrong with it. They're putting them to shame. They're causing them to be guilty that it was them that did the act and not the other person. So they feel very guilty of themselves about doing this and not letting anybody else know about it.
Now, you're SAFE is involved in this year-round, but this month is a special month, Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Awareness Month. What's going to be going on this week?
Well, matter of fact, tomorrow, I'm going down to Montgomery, to share in on a program that they're going to have on child abuse. But right here in Sylacauga, we're going to have a program Thursday, 10 o'clock, at the flagpole at City Hall, if the weather permits. If the weather is sort of bad, we'll move inside of City Hall. But we're going to have a program outside. We're going to have the mayor read a proclamation about child abuse. We're going to have a couple of guests from DHR. They're going to come and talk about information about child abuse. Matter of fact, it's going to be, her name is Nicole Parker. She's going to come from Talladega. I think she's the executive director there. And then we're going to have Nancy Butner. She's the commissioner for DHR. She's going to come and share information about child abuse and what we can do and the resources out there available to help with this issue that we are having to deal with here in this town, here in this city, here in this county, not just the nation, but here. They're going to come and talk about it with us.
DHR, when that government agency is mentioned, a lot of people think, well, DHR just wants to take my child away from me. That's not the case.
That is not the case. Matter of fact, they want the child and the family to stay together. So they'll look into any information that's being given to them. They're going to look into the information. They're going to do a little investigative work, and they'll look and see if it's worthy enough to remove that child from the family. But they're not trying to do that. They're trying to do something to keep them together, help them with counseling, getting them the resources they need, skills in how to parent better, how to communicate child and parent together, get the communication going, the relationship strengthening in that family before they try and take that child away. They want that child and family to be together.
Is this, Ollie, something that maybe is handed down from generation to generation, where a father or a mother was abused the child and they in turn abuse their own child? That could be.
That very well could be the case, that they were abused growing up and they see that sort of they came out okay. And so this is what they know. This is their knowledge. This is their parenting skills. And so they'll bring that forth into their family and put it or bring it to their child and perhaps lay it on them. But then again, some will grow up knowing that's what hurt them, and so they will try their best to try to turn it around. But sometimes it happens and sometimes it does not happen and it's turned around. It keeps on generation after generation.
Yeah. Maybe you're watching this morning and this has kind of piqued your interest, and we hope it has. Ollie Cates joins us today as we talk about Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Awareness Month, and Ollie's the outreach case manager since 2001 for SAFE's fatherhood program. Maybe you're watching today and you've kind of thought in your mind, well, maybe maybe I've noticed something, and maybe, there's something to this. What direction they need to go?
Well, let me bring this up too, which direction it should go. They should report it. That's one thing. But I just thought about something, Jimmy, that I didn't bring up just a moment ago. In our program out there, we're going to have some what they call pinwheels out there. And hopefully people passing by, they're going to be seeing these pinwheels spinning and everything, and it's going to cause them to think, what is that all about? Well, it's all about showing that this is Child Abuse Prevention Month. Those pinwheels are the hopes and promise that every child deserves to live and be raised in a safe, healthy relationship in their families and in a good environment. Now, you said, what are we going to do as far as what now?
If people watching this morning have an inkling of maybe child abuse going on with a neighbor or a family member, or even themselves, and they realize that, hey, I got to get this taken care of, what do they need to do?
They need to maybe pay attention. Now, you're not going to do this out of spite or anything. You're going to do this because you suspect there's child abuse in this situation. So what you need to do is to make a call to DHR, most of all, maybe the police department locally, but mainly DHR. Call them up, give that person who you're talking with the name of that child, what you have observed on that child, where that child is located, maybe even the parents of the child, if you know that information. Turn that all in to DHR. That's over the phone if you're able to do that. Then you can follow it up with written information, what I just said about giving the name and all the situations that you witnessed to them.
How does one who suspects child abuse, how do they protect themselves as to not getting their name out there?
Well, they can stay anonymous. Giving information out, an individual can stay anonymous because they don't want to get involved as far as they said it. Well, you can stay anonymous. But if you do not stay anonymous, well, you can stay anonymous, but if you do not stay anonymous, there is a law out there that protects you when you give information and you're doing it with good faith. You're doing it in good faith, that this information that you're providing is in good faith. You're not trying to get anybody into trouble. You're just trying to protect that particular child that you have witnessed to be, say, abused.
Is child abuse more prevalent with fathers or mothers or brothers or sisters or grandparents? Who would that be?
Everybody. I mean, families, friends. It's not just focused on just any old body. It's different people doing it. But you find it mostly happening in, say, the family realm. It's not always strangers that's doing this child abuse. It's not always strangers. It's the close relatives that's causing it, because they're trying to convince this child that there's nothing wrong with it. We are related. There's nothing wrong with what we are doing. And so they go through the act of getting this child involved in these situations.
And churches aren't immune to it either.
Churches are not immune. No one is immune to it. It happens all over the country. It's happening in different situations.
And there are a number of agencies, including churches. If you suspect child abuse, it's a law that you let people know about it.
Reporting it, absolutely. Churches, pastors, hospitals, doctors, service centers. All of us have to, nurses, all of us have to report this. This is mandatory for certain professionals. Now, it's not mandatory, but it should be for every one of us who witness a child being abused. It's up to us to report that.
It takes a lot of money to drive child abuse and neglect prevention and of course this is Awareness Month in the month of April. Where does the monies come from, and how much money is spent on child abuse cases in terms of prosecution and intervention?
Well, of course, the government provides the funds and things like that to help with this information of gathering information, investigative work, prosecution of cases that's being turned in. All that's gathered and put together, and the money just flow, and it's in millions that is spent on child abuse to get these things done, away with, but it's still out there. Child abuse is still being done, even though all this money is being put out there to cover these situations.
Are there numbers that will back up what we're saying this morning about child abuse?
Normally, I usually get from DHR, I got some sort of old numbers. Let me just look at, here we go. These are some year back numbers. I couldn't get the most current because I wanted to come and share this information with the public because we're having our program Thursday. But a few years, let's take a few years of looking at what it looks like in the past. Let's start back in 2014. There were 500 reports of child abuse reported.
Now, what area is that? 500.
This is in our county.
In Talladega County.
This is in our county. Wow. We're not talking about the state of Alabama. We're not talking about the nations. We're talking right here in the Talladega County. In 2014, over 500 reports was taken. This is 14. 2015, it was over 500. 2016, it was over 600. 2017, it's over 600. 18, I didn't get all the information on 18, but it was over 200 or 300 then. Now here we are in 2019. I don't have any information on that, but I know it's not zero, and it should be.
And you see the cases that go unreported.
A lot of going unreported because people do not want to get involved. They see it, they don't say anything about it, it's not their business, and so it's unreported, and there's a bunch of them out there.
All right, Ollie Cates, our guest this morning. And before we go, talk about your specific duties as the case manager for SAFE's fatherhood program. What does that entail?
Hey, my fatherhood program, I like I said, look, I started back in 2001 with my fatherhood program, and I was going to do the program for 2 years. I told my director, Mrs. Boyden, I was going to do it for 2 years. What year is this? This is 2019. Yeah. Well, I'm still doing it because I share with my fathers information about how to communicate with their children, and with the mother of their children. And by my sharing this information with them, I see good results as to once they have heard and sharpened their skills on relationship building, I can see the good results of them getting along with their children and getting along with the mother in the best way they can after communicating with them.
You mentioned the numbers in past years. When those cases are reported, are all those cases investigated?
Not all. Well, when you say investigated, they look into it investigation-wise, but it doesn't go all the way through the process of being prosecuted. Mm-hmm. They're investigated, but not all the way to the prosecution.
All right, Ollie Cates, our guest this morning, and Ollie's going to capsule what's going to be going on here in Sylacauga on Thursday morning before we let you get out of here.
What we're going to do Thursday, 10 o'clock at City Hall at the flagpole, we're going to present information to the community, and please come out and show your support as far as showing what you also want to be involved with it. Share information with everyone there about child abuse and it exists right here in our town and what we can do about it to get these numbers down, 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 down to zero in our community.
Is there a telephone number you can give out this morning for people who can call if they have information or just need to talk more about it?
Yes. If you suspect child abuse, you can call DHR. Their telephone number is 256-761-6600. That's 256-761-6600.
All right. Ollie, thanks for coming this morning. Keep up the good work. We'll see you Thursday.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ollie Cates, the Outreach Case Manager for SAFE's Fatherhood Program, talking about Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Awareness Month, and a big program coming up at the flagpole here in Sylacauga at 10 o'clock on Thursday morning. More Daybreak right after this.